Hello, Village Youth. My name is Jonathan. I'm a village person, and I'm here with the influencers that are all around. Hey, everybody. As you can probably notice, I am not Chris Cummings, who is the youth pastor here. He just had a little one enter his family named Micah Cummings, and we are super excited for him. So these next few recordings, we will be out without Chris as he learns the joys of being a dad. And so we're excited for him, be praying for him and Joanna and little Micah. So that being said, we're going to continue in the book of Mark. Today we are doing chapter 13. So let's start by saying chapter 13, as we left off last week, Jesus and his disciples are leaving the temple. And his disciples say, "Look, teacher, look at the massive stones and what magnificent buildings there are around us." And Jesus basically says, hey, just so you know, not one stone is going to be left on another. All of these will be thrown down. And it says he was sitting in the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, and Peter, James, and John and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us when these things will happen. What will be the sign that they're about to be fulfilled?" And so most of this chapter, Jesus goes on talking about the end times, the end of the world. Now, it is important to know during this time, there were a lot of writings that are called apocryphal writings, which all are stories using metaphors to describe what the end of the world will be, when new times will come, peace will arrive, things like that. And so it's important to understand for this time, this would be a very normal question for someone to ask, because in their culture, it was something that had become very pronounced during that time. And so Jesus wants to speak into this as well. But you'll notice one theme that he gives throughout him talking about these things is he says, "Do not be alarmed," several times. When were some of the times that he said, "Do not be alarmed" or "Do not be afraid"?
Jesus said, "But whenever you hear about wars and rumors about wars, don't be disturbed. These things have to happen, but it doesn't mean the end is here."
Right. And then right after that, they'll say there'll be earthquakes in various places and famines, and these things are the beginning of the birth pains. But it says to not be alarmed. Mm-hmm. So it's important, and we see this in our society as well, particularly when we have 24-hour news where you can learn about every single bad thing that happens in the world within hours of it happening. We hear about wars and natural disasters and things like this, and it gives you this sense of feeling out of control. You know, there's so many things that are bigger than us that lead to pain and destruction and death, and that can be scary. Jesus understands that and speaks into that and says, hey, you know, you're going to hear about these things. These are going to come. And then he even turns later and says that, you know, there are going to be people that are going to come saying that they are the Christ and that they are coming in my name and trying to speak to these things. And he even says then, it says, "At that time, if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Christ,' or 'Look, there he is,' do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will appear and perform signs and miracles to deceive the elect, if that were possible. So be on your guard. I've told you everything ahead of time." And we've even seen this. You've probably heard people, you know, say these things, that they come in the name of Jesus, or some that they are even Christ themselves that have come and have led a lot of people down paths that weren't good. And so, you know, Jesus uses a lot of this time to talk about these things that are going to come, that people that are coming to say that they're him, that there's going to be wars, all of these things, and to not be alarmed, to know those are coming. But at the end, it says in verse 27 that he will send his angels and gather his elect from the four winds and from the ends of the earth. And so even in the midst of all these things that cause fear, there is a hope there, and to know that he loves us, that he's promised new life for us in the new heavens and new earth that are to be created. And so in your same life, there's going to be those same, as you go through your life, wars, rumors of wars. There's been financial downturn. There's been talks of, you know, how the world's going to end by global warming. There's been talks of all these things. And I'm not saying those things aren't real, but I'm saying God is still on his throne, and we can have trust in knowing that he is going to work through those things for our good and other people's good until all things are made new again. So those same things are going to happen in your life. There's going to be more wars. There's going to be more famines, all that. But take those time to remember that when Jesus's disciples asked him the same thing, that he focused on, hey, know that my words are never going to go away. Try not to be afraid and focus on me, not what other people are saying during that time.
It's just like a little minor detail that I wanted like clarification on because it's super odd, but it says it will be a terrible time for pregnant and nursing mothers. I don't understand why that is like it's the end of the world, but why is it more terrible for pregnant women?
That's a good question. And so if we think about this in terms of metaphorical writings, so when you look at verse 17, how dreadful will it be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers? Pray that this does not take place in winter, because those days of distress will be unequaled from the beginning. All these are used as metaphors. I wouldn't literally take it as, oh man, it's going to be worse for pregnant or nursing women during this time. But if you think of, when a child, we just talked about Chris and Joanna with Micah, the time that they're at their most, sensitive, when they need the most security and safety around them, it's kind of using that as a metaphor to say that there's not going to be that safety and security around at that time. So I don't necessarily think that's something that we have to worry about literally. In that it's going to affect, those people more than others. It's more just a metaphor towards the times, what it's going to be like then. But I think at this point, it was a big question, so much of a question that his disciples are even asking him, all right, go ahead and let us know when all this is going to happen. You notice he didn't answer their question. They specifically said, hey, tell us when these things are going to happen. Tell us exactly what we need to be looking for. And he said, hey, here's some things that you probably need to know more. One, you're going to hear about all this stuff for the rest of your life. You're going to hear about wars, earthquakes, famines, the wrath of God, all of these things. It's more important that you're not alarmed about those. Okay, yes, there is going to be a time that comes where the world is going to have to be made new, that more and more people are going to choose to be their own God of their life instead of following the Creator. And in doing so, that creates a lot of pain and destruction, because then everyone's trying to do their own thing. That becomes difficult. There's going to be times that are hard. But, as we read in that verse previously, that he says, this heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. So know the things that you have learned from me are going to be eternal. So focus on those. More the people that are around you that are going to be saying things like, hey, what does this mean? God's using this. This is God's judgment. Because again, at this time, there was a lot of people that were always talking about, when do the end times come? When does the Christ come that's going to kick out the Romans or whoever was at that time? And so Jesus is redirecting them, instead of answering their question, to say, hey, yeah, those are things that can be scary, but know that my words are not going to pass away. Focus on this and know that God is going to take care of you through it. Go, Kerrigan. What you got?
So you were mentioning how the disciples were asking a bunch of questions about like timing of this whole shebang of the end of the world and stuff like that. And verse 32, he talks about how like the angels don't know the timing, nor does the Son, so meaning him, only the Father. And this doesn't make sense, because throughout the whole book of Mark, Jesus has seemed to have like all of the answers. He's the wise one. He's the one who talks to God, the Father. But like, why is it this one thing that he doesn't know the timing? Like, is there any significance in that?
Is there any significance in that? The answer to that is yes, there is significance to that. Do we know the significance of that? So that's more where, there's going to be things that are understandable. But let me tell you, and this is just purely coming from me and my understanding of Scripture. Let's put it in terms of school. When your teacher tells you that you are going to have a unit test, chapter test, whatever it may be, on April the 30th, when are you going to study for that?
April 29th.
April 29th, right? That's just human nature. When there's something that we're not looking forward to, something that we don't really want to be a part of, whatever it may be, when we have a deadline on that, a lot of times we just say, oh, okay, well, I know when exactly that's going to be. And so I'll prepare for it when I get there. Okay. When you have one of those teachers that, if teachers do this anymore, they used to do it all the time when I was in high school, a quarter of a century ago. There were teachers that would, and they'll tell you, you're going to have pop quizzes, you're going to have pop tests, you won't know when they're coming. Okay. And guess what you had to do in those classes? Got to be on top of your stuff or know you're going to fail when that comes. And so in my mind, this is the Father having grace and mercy on us and knowing that people, if they knew exactly when the end of the world was going to come, they would just, say, okay, well, I'll just go do whatever I want. And then at the end, I'll try to make up for it, do all this stuff or things like that. Or they really wouldn't take, the words of Jesus out and go and live and love the people, around them because they would think they have time to do those things. And so Jesus is more saying, he kind of uses this metaphor at the end of the chapter where he says, imagine that the owner, of the land, is going away and he tells his servants to keep everything there, So if you think of it as like a vineyard, to keep the grapes tended to, all of those things, to make sure everything, is in play and they don't know when he's coming back, they're always going to be working towards that. And so I think that's just sort of the mindset we have to have, Kerrigan, that it would be easier if we knew when something was coming to focus on that and our own desires around that than for our focus to be on doing what Jesus has already asked us to.
So what if we apply that to life though? Like we live like our whole life not following Jesus, then right when we know we're about to die. I know life is kind of like a pop quiz. Like you can die at any time. But if you live like a healthy life and they like, I don't know, you're going to die at a certain time. Like my grandfather did, or my great grandfather did. He didn't follow Jesus for his whole life until like the last week. That still is something, not necessarily like Jesus is coming back, but it's still like, okay, I'm going to act however I want until like I'm about to die or something's about to happen that like depends on how my afterlife goes. So I guess my question is, I know it's not better because like you'll be happier in life if you follow Jesus during your like lifetime, but it's also really hard to make those type of decisions that Jesus asks you to make, because a lot of times it goes out of your way or like out of your interests. You have to go out of your comfort zone. So which one's better?
Eli, I appreciate the wisdom that you had in the way that you were sort of wrapping your question up there. Were you wondering about the sincerity of that? I mean, if someone waits until the very end of the life, is that sincere? Okay. So, and Jesus even talks about that in that he says it's not our job to be the discerner of hearts, that God will take care of that. So, if someone has been living their life for themselves the whole time, and then truly they do have a faith, where they say, okay, I know what reality is. I know I can't do this life on my own. Jesus, I need your sacrifice, your love to cover me because I can't do this. You all have probably read the story of the prodigal son, which I think is a very bad title, because that story was as much about the son that stayed home as it is about the one that left. And you'll see the Father there who represents God the Father. You know, when he talks to the older son, that he says, you always had my gift and blessing here. Even though you were trying to work for it, you always had it at your disposal. We need to celebrate your brother coming back. And so it would be the same thing. Even if someone does go off and takes the grace and love and beauty and all the things that God has given them and just blows them on things that don't really matter, God says that he is still going to welcome those people back home if they choose to come home. But I do think that there is a greater reward for those of us that choose to follow Jesus longer, in that we can look back on fewer times in our life with shame and regret, you know, and knowing that we brought hopefully peace and goodness and kindness into the world, all the fruits of the Spirit in that. So there's a greater reward for us on the other side, in that we have those times to remember where we got to experience even more of the kingdom than maybe other people did.